So this is what your piece should look like when you get done. I'm not guaranteeing anything, okay? This is what mine looks like when it gets done. And now I'm going to have quite a collection of them. So this is what your piece should look like now. One of the first things we want to do is, okay, so we want to stencil some snowflakes on this background, of course not in the snowman's face, with warm white. So you want to get out your favorite stencil brush, or if you use a sponge, and we're going to add some random snowflakes all over. And if there are actually quite a few, and you can go ahead and stencil them where the letters are going to go too, because they peek out from behind the letters there. So I'm just going to add, they don't have to be real opaque. They can just so you know that there are snowflakes in that back. Ooh, don't move your stencil. Snowflakes in your background. I'm going to stick in the big ones first. And I'm even going to make some that are kind of into the snowman so that they'll peek out from behind him after we build him. And I'm using Chris Hoy's stencil brush. I love it. I used to just use sponges all the time because I could never find a stencil brush I liked, but I really like these. So if you're looking for a stencil brush, try Chris's. And when you do add snowflakes, make some of them go off the straight edge of the thing. You don't have to keep them at whole. They can be part of a snowflake. So I'm putting a lot of snowflakes on this puppy. So this is the one time that you can get carried away because I don't highlight and I do not shade these snowflakes. And these aren't the focal point. They're just to add interest to the background. So don't worry about them too much. I think that's probably enough for me. So one of the next things we want to do is we want to shade on the background around the snowman, his scarf. Don't shade down here because that's actually snowman. And across the top and this little edge here with green lagoon. So get out your best flat brush that you like or angle that you like to float shading with, and let's add some shading to pop this guy off the background. I'm going to start down here. All right, so we're just going to go all the way around the snowman and his scarf with a float of green lagoon. Let's set this guy aside for a minute and work on our snowflakes. You can use a sponge, or you can use a brush you like to stipple with. But what you're going to do is you're going to stipple them and baste them in with warm white. And so just a quick coat of warm white. I'm using my brush I stipple with. It's actually a little faster if you have a cosmetics wedge sponge. So let's get all 3 of those. And I know I could have had you do this ahead of time, but we do a little bit of, we put some glitter on them now, and which it doesn't matter that you're going to get glitter in your paint water because the thing has glitter on it, you know. But if you're anal, you can go wash out your basin. So let's just get these guys stippled in with warm white, or painted with warm white. So you want to stipple them again, but this time you're going to add a little bit of your glitter paint, only if you want, to the base coat. It's kind of like we want to embed some of those sparkles into the warm white that we're putting on these guys. So just pick up a little warm white every once in a while too. So we're going to let those dry for now, and then we're going to come back and just put some glitter on them to make them really sparkle. They're heavy on glitter. I don't know if you can, yeah, there you go. You can see it there, how heavy they are on glitter. I'm not a glitter person, so I don't know where this came from. We're going to work on the little snowman's face now, and also we want to not forget this little area down here. But we're going to smoosh our snowman in. And smooshing is like stippling. Most of you know this because you've known me for years. But we are going to smoosh our snowman in with warm white. So you're going to use a brush that you like to stipple with. I use the Langnickel short round sable brushes. And we are going to use warm white. And strictly warm white, no other colors. So what I'm going to do here is, let me see, let me go to my palette here. So I'm going to load my brush with warm white, and you load it just like you were going to stipple, except when you stipple something, you always kind of pounce out the paint on your palette. For smooshing, you don't do that. You want all that paint in your brush, okay? So I'm going to start on this outside edge because I want to make it look fluffy. So I'm going to just kind of set down the brush. With stippling, you're going at it straight up and down. You're pouncing like this, and you get little balls of stuff. And you can do that. That's fine. With smooshing, you kind of keep the brush at a little angle, and you just set it down. You don't really even lift it up off the surface, but you just kind of push that paint into the areas that you want it to go. So I've got a nice fluffy edge here now. And I'm going to go up here and go under my hat so I can kind of control where it's going, and so it doesn't go up on the hat so much. It's one of the nice things about these brushes is unless I'm dry brushing with them, they keep a point, and I can pretty much keep a pretty good line there. So once you get those two sides done, go back in and just start slapping and moving that paint to fill in the area. And I kind of think of it like a sewing machine. Just going up and down and moving around to fill in that whole face. So you guys have done this enough with me, most of you, so you know where we're going with this. We just want to get this first layer on. It's not going to be opaque. You're going to still see that green background through it, and that's okay. That helps to make him look cold. And it's also going to be uneven, and that's okay too, because snow isn't just flat, and it has dips and divots and all kinds of little things to give it dimension. So get up around the scarf. It's okay if you get it on the scarf because we shade and highlight and we'll straighten out those edges. So don't panic if you get some snow on the scarf. So I'm just gonna keep smooshing till I get his whole little head filled up. Okay, so it looks pretty sketchy and lots of places where you can see the green background, but it's fine. So now we're going to go down and we're going to smoosh in this little area underneath the scarf. It might get a little trickier, but you can do it. I know you can. I'm not even getting all the way up to the scarf in some places, and that'll be okay because we float some shading in there. So when I do this to build snowman, I always start on the outside edges on the first coat, just so I can set down those nice soft fluffy edges, and it just works out better that way. Now we're going to smoosh on a second layer, and it's done exactly the same way with the exception of one thing. This time you're going to start in what would be the center of his face. And now the center of his face isn't necessarily the center of this circle. He's looking a little bit off to the left. So the center of his face is actually in this area right here, kind of left of what you would normally think center is. And that's where I'm going to start laying down paint. And what I do here is I kind of work in a circle a little bit. And I lay down this paint so that I'm getting the brightest snow in the center of his face. And what's going to happen is as I run out of paint on my brush, I'm going to head towards an edge because I don't want to lay down as much paint on the outside edges of my snowman. I want to keep that green kind of hue showing through. So I'll reload my brush I'll head back into more of the center of the snowman's head. And then as I run out of paint, I'm going to head up here to the edge, which right now is under his hat. So you want to lay down most of your paint in the center area of the snowman. And it's still not opaque. You still want to see hints of the green because that gives that snow kind of dimension. And don't forget this little area down underneath the scarf. It doesn't really matter where you smoosh that part. And then you can wash out your smooshing brush. We are going to work on the scarf next so that our snowman can dry a little bit. We are going to dry brush some highlighting on our scarf with warm white. Still working with warm white. And so you're going to treat each of these little, I'm cold. I don't know if you can see me shaking a little bit. I'm going to have to go turn my heater on. We're going to do in each of these little sections as its own little section. Don't just dry brush willy-nilly straight across the scarf. And with warm white, so get out your brush you like to dry brush with and dress it the way that you like to dress your brush. I'm still doing the old hand thing. And so I'm going to start up here in this little triangle area right here. And yes, it goes right over those nice dots that you put on there. But I'm just going to dry brush some highlighting with this warm white. And on this little flip over tail of the scarf, I'm going to go through the center of that one. Your best dry brushing is going to be right here where this letter goes over the scarf, because that's just the way it is. The best looking part always gets covered up by something else. I'm going to go over to this side and dry brush in this little triangle area. And there's a little teeny tiny triangle area between the knot and the end of the scarf on the right side. So you want to touch a little in there, or a lot like I did. And the same thing for this little scarf end. You want to dry brush through the center. I got that one a little heavy, but it'll be okay. And then I'm going to go kind of this, just the center area of the knot. So wherever you can get your brush in to dry brush some highlighting, that's where you want to dry brush highlighting with warm white. Okay, we're gonna, how we doing? Got all that dry brushing done? We are gonna go back to our snowman, and we are going to get out some sweet mint. You're gonna float shading under his hat on the snowman and above and below the scarf. You want it to be a nice soft float. So blend it out. You know, have you noticed I have this on a turntable, but I pick it up and turn it. I don't know. I should just get rid of the turntable. I have it on a little turntable and I forget to use it, and I pick the piece up and turn it usually. So I'm just going to come across the top of the snowman under that bucket hat. I got a little too much. I got it carried away right here. So I'm going to clean this up. And if you like to mop your floats, this would be a good place to do that. And I'm going to go above and below the scarf. So I'm actually starting this float up here where the scarf starts. Okay. And I'm just going to go above and below it with that sweet mint. And I'll turn them this way to do under the scarf on that little body, piece of body that's there. All right, we're going to go back to the scarf when you're done with this shading and do some shading. But I want you to get your pattern out and ready, because when we're done with that, we're going to put the pattern on for the snowman's face. So just have that handy. So we're going to go back down to the scarf and we're going to float shading with evergreen. I don't know if you could see that, but evergreen. So you want to get out a little bit of that. So we are going to float shading. We'll start with the easy stuff first, if there is such a thing with floating. We're going to do the outside edge and this side edge down here. So I'm just going to float evergreen, which is a nice transparent color to start with, so that makes it nice. You don't have to blend it out too much. And I lied. Oh no, I did. Never mind, I didn't lie. Shoo! Saved myself. I'm going to do this straight edge, and you stop when you get to the little tail end of the scarf. So let's see if I can make this work an easy way to be a contortionist. Okay, so we did kind of like both outside edges. We're going to do both sides of the tails of the scarf. I'm going to start up here at the top, kind of, and then bring that float all the way down. I'm going to go and do that on the other one, on the other tie too. I'm going to actually start at the top here, and there's a little bit of a float that's right next to the knot. And then bring it down. Starting to look better already. There's this teeny tiny little triangle on the left side. You want to float just a touch of shading inside there. And I'm going to clean that up with my clear side of my brush. So just this little spot here, and we're actually going to come in and shade. It's basically going to get filled in. So let's do this, the outside edges of the knot. I'm starting up at the top and coming down to shade the side of the knot. And it actually ends up going all the way across the bottom of the knot. But you can stop where that little hump is. And then we'll finish it when we do the other side. Okay, we're going to flip this guy around. And I'm going to do the other opposite side of the tails of the scarf. So I'm just going to come up the other side. And that's going to be on both of them. On this one on the right side, I'm actually going to start it across the top and then come down the long side. There's this other triangle on the other side, on the right side, that's next to the knot. You want to float next to the knot in that little triangle, and that one too is going to basically get filled up with evergreen shading. Lots of little places to shade on this thing. I should have just made it a scarf without a knot. That would have been a lot easier. Let's go back to the right side. That larger triangle space up here, you want to float shading across the top of it. And you're going to do the same thing on the left side, on that triangle. We're going to go on those two little triangles on either side of the knot that I said are basically going to get filled up. You want to go across the bottom of those. So it's like you're floating on the lower edge of the scarf. We're going to float on that triangle on the right side where it goes underneath the little tie end. So you've finished off that triangle. You've gotten all three sides of it. And the same goes for the opposite side on the left side. You want to float in that little triangle next to the tie, the end of the scarf. Little triangle that's on the right side, we're going to finish it off and float next to the end of the scarf. So that got filled in quite nicely with evergreen. If any of you out there want to finish my sentences for me, that would be great. So we have to shade the other side of the knot. We have to do that. Yeah. Oh no, the cute part comes next. So I put some gathers, like in that bottom of the knot, and you can't see it under here, but in where the ties come out of the knot. And the way I do that is I just corner load my brush and blend it out like I was going to do a float. And this is again with evergreen. And then I'm going to tip this a little bit so you can maybe see what I'm doing. I'm going to stay on the chisel edge of the brush with the color down against the bottom of the knot. And I'm just going to set it down on the chisel edge and pull to give me some wrinkles and some gathers. So I just put in as many as you want because these are so easy. And I don't highlight and shade them. So the same thing goes for the where they come out of the ties come out of the knot. You might just make those a little longer. But that way they don't look like they're just flat. Excuse me. All right. Now if you look at your scarf and you think you need to deepen the shading at all, you can come back with another float here and there with evergreen. I think I'm going to leave mine alone, and if I decide to do that later, it might only be in those little triangle areas and maybe over in this triangle area. But for now, I'm leaving it alone. So now you want to get out your pattern and put the face on your snowman. And you can also go ahead and put on the pattern for the handle of the bucket. And now the bucket handle is set up a little bit off his face, so don't try to keep it around this bottom edge of his face. Okay. New graphite, so I'm going to be really light, I think, I hope. So put on his eyes, just the oval, because that's the only thing you have on the pattern. If I put more on the pattern, then people tend to want to... I'm back?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to put on the pattern for his nose. For his mouth, I'm just going to put a little X in the center of each of those little pieces of coal that form his mouth. And then I'm going to put the pattern on for that bucket handle. And I'm just doing one line. I'm not tracing the whole, 2 lines to form the handle and stuff thing, because I know I can fill that up and make it look thicker. Just if you get to a point where you're done and I'm waiting still, you can always go back to your snowflakes and add some more glitter to the top of them. Straight glitter, no warm white paint. So let's see, what should we work on next? Let's work on, since we're putting the pattern on his face, we might as well work on his face a little bit. So you're going to give him some little cheeks with Joyful Pink. You're going to dry brush them on, or if you prefer, you can do a light wash or tint. It's Joyful Pink plus Warm White. You want to lighten that pink up a little bit. So just pick up some joyful pink on your brush and then add some warm white till you get a nice light pinkish color. And I'm just going to dry brush nice round cheeks, and they're going to sit right over that top little piece of coal. So I start in the center and I just do a circle. I probably could add more pink to mine. So nice big. You can go over where the handle's going to go. That's okay. And then I'm going to give him one over here on the other side. And it's okay if you start it and just keep doing the circle. It can go up into his nose. The paint, the nose will cover that up. It's just easier than trying to go around the nose. Yeah, those look good. We're going to work on his nose next. So you're going to need burnt orange, golden straw, burnt umber, and warm white. But you should have some on your palette. So burnt orange, golden straw, and burnt umber. And his nose is big enough you can use like a small round brush or a larger liner brush. I think I'm going to try this 4 round. Or you can use a 3 or you can use a 2. We are going to paint our nose in using shape following strokes. And here again, you all have painted, most of you have painted a snowman with me before, so you kind of know the drill. But I'm going to load my round brush with burnt orange, lots of paint. And I'm going to stroke on this nose, starting at the back, longer, wider edge. But I'm going to use shape following strokes, which means I'm going to follow this curve. Don't worry about the bottom, because we'll clean it up when we stroke on the shading. And I'm just going to go around, and I want to continue following that curve all the way across this nose. If you did it straight up and down, it wouldn't really look like a carrot. So you want to keep that curve going. And if you get ridges, I think you can see that there, that's fine. Carrots have ridges and rough spots, so we're going for a more realistic carrot than just to paint it in with burnt umber and shade and highlight. So I'm going to continue pulling these strokes on. So filling up my carrot nose. Reload as often as you need to. And as I get towards the tip of the nose, what I end up doing is just kind of tapping the tip in. So there I've got a carrot nose. All I'm going to do is wipe out my brush. I'm not going to clean it. I'm not going to, wash it out. So I start with a clean brush. I want that burnt orange in there. So I'm going to pick up some golden straw on that dirty brush. And I'm going to stroke on the highlighting. And this is going to go on the top. Let's see if we can get it here. You can see the golden straw all along the top here. So it gets stroked on the same way, and it's okay that this paint is wet, because we don't want it to be a solid line of golden straw. We want it to kind of blend into that base coat. And I'm going to try, I don't succeed very often, but I'm going to try not to end all these strokes in the same place. As you can see, as I'm saying that, I'm ending them all in the same place. So And if you messed up a curve, this is where you fix it. But I'm just going to keep picking up golden straw as I need it until I get to the very end here and I just tap it off. So there you've got your first highlight on your nose. And again, I'm just going to wipe this brush out. I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to turn my guy over and I'm going to do the same thing along the bottom of the nose with burnt umber. And this is where you get to clean up that fuzzy edge. So I'm just going to pull burnt umber, and if it goes up into the shading, the highlighting, that's okay. So I'm just going to stroke on that shading with burnt umber. And I'm just going to tap it along the bottom edge of the point of the nose. I think I want to make this guy just a little longer. That back side. Now you can wash your brush out. So we need to add a little bit brighter highlight. And you washed out your brush, so now you can just go into straight warm white. And all I do is I kind of stroke it on, I kind of tap it on. But it goes across the top of the nose, but it doesn't go completely up to the top. I leave a little bit of the orange showing through. So in your pictures, it shows a little bit more strokey looking. So that's what I'll do. So I'm just going to go and add some warm white across the top of the nose, just to be a highlight. There's one more thing we do to the nose, but it has to be dry before we can do that. So if you've lost your orange, you can just use the same brush, pick up some of that burnt orange, and you can just kind of stroke some of it back in there through the center. That happens to me all the time. Just make sure it's kind of sketchy and not all the same length. So you're going to need lamp black next. And we're going to paint in his eyes and the little pieces of coal. You're going to paint in that entire oval of his eyes. And as always, one of my snowman's eyes is bigger than the other. So just a couple of nice ovals for his eyes with lamp black. And the pieces of coal, on the pattern they're little ovals, but you know, and I know that coal is not just a straight oval. So I'm going to just kind of paint in some very rough pieces of coal. The center one down here and the one next to it on the left are a little bit larger than the other ones. And don't forget, if you're speedy and you've got that done already, you can go and add some more glitter to your snowflakes. Basically, the snowflakes are done when you've applied as much glitter as you want. So we need to let his facial features dry a little bit. So we're going to go back and we're going to we're going to work on his bucket hat. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dry brush some highlights with warm white on the bucket hat. And again, like his face is not directly in the center, that dry brushed highlighting isn't directly in the center. It's kind of off to the left again, kind of in line with the center of his face. So just straight warm white, a dry brush. So keep your hands out of your coal, or keep your forearm out of your coal. But just add some nice dry brush highlights, kind of center left. You also we're going to line a highlight on those little rims, or I don't know what they're called. Ridges, on those ridges. So if you want to dry brush on them and through them, that's okay. But basically we're going to line highlighting on them because they're so small. You're going to need slate gray, and what we're going to do is we're going to paint the bucket handle with slate gray. So think like a bucket. There's, let's see, if you look at your little picture that shows the bucket already basically done, you'll notice that this is a thick, think like a bucket handle. It's not a tiny little wire. It's kind of thick. So when you paint yours on, give it some width. And I'm just going to paint on. That might be a little too thick, but oh well. My bucket is really heavy duty. So I've done this, I've painted in the little thing that holds the bucket handle. So now I'm going to paint the bucket handle. The little hook that holds it to the bucket. And I'm going to go around. And this is where you want to be sure you follow the pattern and not just the bottom edge of its face. I am using a brush that has the sides worn off. I think it's a 1 round. I used to take on the top of these brushes, they have these Aqualons, they have this angled top edge, and I used to write with a marker what size it is. I should probably start doing that again. My bucket handle is very rustic. It's kind of nervous looking. On the right side, the little doohickey thing that holds the bucket handle, that's a technical term, doesn't go all the way up to it, the bucket itself. It kind of goes off the side edge. We are going to line some highlighting on those ridges, the bottom rim, and on the, I think you can see it better on this side, on the bucket handle itself with a liner brush and warm white. This is a number 4 liner, but it's a King Art liner, so to me it's like a number 2 in the Aqualon. So just not your one hair liner. You want a little bit more brush. And all I'm going to do, straight paint, no water, okay? I'm going to try to keep my hand out of my handle. I'm just going to start at this on the left side of the ridges. And I'm just going to set down and just pull this white across until I run out of paint. If it goes all the way to the other side, that's all right. We'll fix it with some shading. So left side, I'm going to pull the second ridge. I'm going to do the same thing with the rim of the bucket. It's really rough and sketchy. It doesn't have to be perfect. I love saying that because then I can do whatever I want. If it doesn't have to be perfect, whatever I do is fine. Okay, so when we get to this, the handle, I'm going to start at the bottom of this thing that holds the handle and just line a little bit of a highlight to make that thing come forward, if that makes sense. And I'm also going to go on this little, the attachment thing, whatever that is. So there, that kind of gives it dimension already. So I'm going to go over here to the right side and do the same thing. You don't want to do this whole little shape right here because this bucket handle actually is on top of it. So I hope that makes sense. And then I also want to line just a little bit of highlight through the bottom center of the handle. So I'm going to start in the center, kind of, and pull one way, and then I'll come back, start in that same place, and pull the other way, just to highlight that handle a little bit right there in the center. We are going to get out some deep midnight blue, and we're going to start floating shading on this bucket. Still have burnt umber. Make sure you can still get in your burnt umber too, because we're going to use that also. So let's do our first float above the rim of the bucket and above those ridges. So you probably want to start with the above the rim first and work your way up the bucket. And that's with deep midnight blue. Just go all the way across above that rim of the bucket. Again, if you like to mop your floats, this would be a good one. And then you're going to go above those two ridges. Oops, looking better already. Let's go on the left. I keep having to remember which way. Left, right, you know, I'm not good that way. On this left side of the rim, just a little C-stroke there. Let's go across the top, or the what would be the bottom of the bucket, but it's the top of his hat. Handles should be dry enough that we can start floating some shading on them. So you want to float to tuck on the left side, that little hangy doo-woppy thing, another technical term. So basically you're floating on that thing right under the rim to kind of set it inside a little bit. You're also going to go on that same little piece of the bucket. You want to go, almost use the wrong side of the brush, in the bottom of it where it tucks in, where it goes behind and lets that little thing, dang it, I'm going to look up the anatomy of a bucket. You're going to go to the other side, and I'll just flip this guy over. And where that little thing that holds the handle to the bucket goes off the side edge, you want to float there. Just tuck a little shading in there. And you also want to do the bottom edge of that little piece. And stop when you get to the actual handle. And add just a touch on the other side. So I've done in the bottom here, and then I skipped the handle part and just touched a little shading on the other side of where the handle is connected to that piece. I think if you get out your instructions and look at this picture here, it shows, you can see where those places are on the little handle thing. I'm going to go down the back side of the bucket, and that's going to go across the rim and both of those ridges. So just straight up the back side of that bucket. Or down the back side, I don't care. You can go up or down, whichever easier for you. But it goes off, it goes on those ridges and on that front rim. You're going to go down the front side of that bucket too, but you're going to stop when you get to those ridges. almost done with this color shading on the bucket. On those little ridges, you want to do like a little stroke float. And I know that's where we started our highlighting, but trust me, this is what we need to do. That little stroke float, say that real fast, in the left side of each of those ridges. All right, we're going to go to the handle itself, and you want to tuck a little bit of shading. Let me see here. Let me get a little closer. On the handle where it goes into that little loopy thing that holds it, right? I'm seriously don't know what to call these things. So it's actually going on both sides of that little thing. It's basically tuck your brush tip in there, and then it's not a real float. You're just touching some color in there. And that goes on both sides. And then I did kind of do a little bit of a shade on the bottom of that handle. So it's just kind of start, and it goes over your highlight a little bit. But try to keep it in that little bottom edge. And I'm getting paint all over my snowman. So that means if you do, it's okay. If I wasn't getting paint all over my snowman, then you were just not doing it right. But if you're doing it right, you're going to get paint on your snowman. And it's okay. It just cleans up really easily. So just a touch of shading down here. We have just a couple more places to shade with this color. Okay, so we did the top side of these ridges. We need to go and float shading underneath those ridges. This is where you can kind of straighten them and clean them up. But this bucket is a little banged up, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
That's what she said.
So we do come back and do a little bit of shading and add some rusty, cracked areas on the bucket with burnt umber, but we do that a little later. We want this all to dry. So we will go back and we will work on his little face next. That'll make his little face a little bigger. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to do this float on our nose that I said I would try to remember. And I'm so proud of myself that I remembered. See if you can poke open your green lagoon. Because all you need is just a little bit. So crack that open. And all we're going to do is we are going to float green lagoon across the lower edge of his nose, just as a reflective float. And that's just going to make it look cold. For some reason that makes it look cold. I'm sitting here freezing and I'm trying to make something look cold. That doesn't make any sense. Actually, I'm not. I turned my heater on. So see, it's just a tint of green lagoon across the bottom. You can probably see it better when it dries. So I'll dry it real quick. And if you can't see it enough, you can always add just a little bit more of a tint. So there, it kind of makes his nose look cold. We're going to work on his little face. And so the first thing we want to do is are going to line a shadow above each eye and to the, let's see, kind of the top but of each piece of coal. But what ends up happening is you're going to be doing the right side on some of them and then across the top and then the left side on some of the coal. And we're going to do that with a wash of sweet mint. That was our shading color on our snowman, so you should still be able to crack that open too and just get a little bit of a wash going. And I'm just going to line this shadow above the eye. And what it is I start about halfway down the eye on the chisel edge of my liner brush, and then as I go around the top I flatten that thing out so it's wider, and then I come back up to the tip on the other side. And if you can't see yours enough, it doesn't take much, but if you can't see it, you can always add just a touch of green lagoon to it to make it a little bit deeper. But we really don't, we just want it there to make it look like our eye is stuck into the snow, not just laying on top of it. And so I'm going to go to the so on his mouth, I'm going to line these first two on the left side. I'm going to line that shadow to the right side of them. On the middle two, I'm going to line it around the top, like I did the eye. And then the two on the right side, of course, are going to get this lined on the left side. So just a quick, easy little shadow to make them look like they're sunk into the snow a little bit. So we are going to dry brush just a little bit of warm white in the top of each eye and a little bit on each piece of coal, as your brush allows for the coal pieces. So warm white, a dry brush. I'm just going to add just a little touch of warm white in the top half of each eye. And then as I can get my brush in, it doesn't matter if it's in the top or the bottom or whatever. We just want to break up that black part of the coal. So I did in the tops of the eyes. It's a very soft dry brush. It's not real bright like I have been known to do lately. And then just stab some color in there on the coal wherever you can get it. So we're going to add some color to his eyes. And I started doing this kind of a cheater way. I'm just going to float green lagoon in the bottom of each eye. And it's not in the very, very bottom. I want to leave that little rim of lamp black under that. So green lagoon, which we probably can still get in. You're just going to float that C stroke in the bottom of each eye, but keeping it off the very bottom edge. And it's a little light, so I'm going to pick up a little more paint and make it a little more opaque. Here we go. You see wet. I'm sorry. So just a nice little C-stroke float in the bottom of each eye. I did not do it to the coal. If you want to, you can add a little touch of this to the coal. But we're just putting his iris in his eye right now. This guy I want a little darker. And so I want to make that a more definite crescent shaped color. So I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to corner load with lamp black, just a touch. It doesn't have to be a big thing. And I'm just going to clean that stroke up a little bit. So there I get a more definite shape in there. I'm going to dry it so you can see it better. I love my dryer. See, it looks like I kissed it, but I didn't. That's how the paint ended on it. If you don't have one, you should get one. So I'm just going to clean up those strokes in the bottom of the eye with a float of lamp black. That one I cleaned up too much. He got too skinny. So I'm just going to fix it. All right, he's got some little eyelashes. I'll show you how I do them. I'm lazy, I don't line them individually, but I want you to see that they're across just the top of each eye, and then I added some little eyelashes in the on the outside corners of the eye, and just a little tap of lamp black in the inside corner. So I'm going to thin down lamp black with my liner brush. And the way I like to do my lashes, like I told you, I'm lazy. So my liner brush is full of thin lamp black. I'm going to set it down inside the black of the eye, and then I'm just going to push it out and kind of squiggle it. So you get some little lashes. And I do the same thing in where I decide the corner of the eye is. And I just do a little touch in the inside corner. So liner consistency, lamp black, but you're more than welcome to line them on one by one if you'd like. Set it down inside the black of the eye in the center and just kind of push it out and squiggle. And you can make them longer if you want. It's your snowman. All right. So we want to add a couple of highlights to the eyes and to the kohl. So I just add, it's like a stroke in the top, and mine are going to look horrible today. I'm just warning you. So a couple of little strokes of a highlight in the top of the eye. You see, they don't have to be perfect. There's my mantra again. And then I'm going to go diagonally down from the stroke I put in, and I'm just going to put a little set down of a highlight that kind of rides the black and blue area, or green area, or whatever color his eyes are. So there you got a stroked highlight in the top right, and then you go diagonally down across from it and add a little set down highlight. And then the pieces of kohl, doesn't really matter where you put the highlight, you just want to set down a little highlight on each of those pieces of kohl. We are going to need a little bit of deep midnight blue and a little bit of burnt umber, not a lot. We're going to go back and work on his little hat a little bit. Again, if you look at that picture, you're going to see what we did, what we're doing. We are going to go back and float some shading with Burnt Umber Deep Midnight Blue Mix. Okay, so I would corner load into my Burnt Umber and then pick up just a touch of Deep Midnight Blue and blend it. You get kind of a gray brown. I could have probably found a color to pull in, but there's so little of it that we don't need to do that. So what I'm going to do is, the first place I'm going to shade is on these little ridges where we did the Deep Midnight Blue before. I'm just going to darken it a little bit with this Deep Midnight Blue Burnt Umber mix. And I'm also going to do that on the rim, just at that one side. We're also going to do it in each of these 3 sections left by the ridges. It's not going to go all the way across the top. I'm going to start about 1/3 of the way across the top and on the chisel, and I'm going to bring it into that corner a little bit and down to the first ridge. I think I want a little more brown in that one. So I'm going to go back and brown it up a little bit. This is an old bucket. If it was a good bucket, it wouldn't be on a snowman's head. And I'm also going to do the same thing under each of those ridges. I'm going to start about 1/3 of the way over underneath it, bring it across and down. Same thing with the next one. I don't put any of this color on the handles. You know, while we were on break, I should have looked it up, but I didn't do it on the handle. If you wanted to, about the only place I suggest doing it is right under the rim. I'm also going to float this color mix all the way down the back side, across the rims, across the ridges. In your picture again, you can see this. I'm just going to take some of this same blue and brown mix, and I'm just going to paint some little cracks in the bucket. There actually is one over here too, on the original. So wherever you want to, I put one up here in the corner, so that would explain why the bucket has a hole in it. So it's no good anymore. So liner brush and just a mix of that Deep Midnight Blue and Burnt Umber. And you can put these wherever you want. We don't shade or highlight them, so go crazy if you want to. So I'm just going to line. I probably want more brown in that. Just a little hole in the bottom of that bucket. And I think I did a little bit here. And if you don't want to do it at all, you don't have to. It's your piece. I won't know until you tell me, because you know you will. It's what I do. And then let's see, there is another place. I'm going to put a little bit under here. I think I did a whiter one. Oh, one more place. I'm getting carried away. You're going to need some evergreen and some joyful pink for the next step. And you already have some burnt umber, so we're good. You can go and put the pattern on. What we're going to do is we're going to paint that greenery that's coming out of the bucket. I didn't want to go full tilt and pull in a comb or a rake brush. I just wanted to give you the idea that there was greenery coming out. So you can put the pattern on for it if you'd like, or you can just look at the picture and kind of do it wherever you'd like. But the first thing you want to do is you want to line the center stem that this greenery is going to be on. So space it apart a little bit so you don't overlap too much. But I'm just going to add some stems wherever I want some greenery. And that's with burnt umber. Now keep in mind that you're going to have to line pine needles on these, so don't get too carried away, or you'll be lining pine needles while they're cleaning up the room. I even made one come out of here. Kind of looks like I'm just painting worms on here right now. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. You can make them longer or shorter or whatever you'd like. So we're going to just line some pine needles on there. You can make yours straight, you can make them curvy. They're your pine needles, you do whatever you like. And that's just with your liner brush and thinned evergreen. He has hair now. So as you can probably guess, the berries are done with joyful pink. And if you want to wait until you get home, you can dot them with the back of a brush or something, because we know we always get our fingers in things when we dot them. But I'm going to paint mine on with my liner brush. Just little berries. You can make them as big as you want. You can put as many as you want. But we are going to dot a highlight on them. So little joyful pink berries. If you have that little stencil from Chris Hoy that has the circles, you could stencil them. Don't make them all the same size though. Some of them are a little bigger than the others. And that was probably not a decision I made specifically. It just happened when I was painting them that some of them got bigger. And then each of those berries gets a warm white highlight dot. And I do that again with my liner brush. The one I just put down and now can't find. Okay, there it is. And it's just in the top. That pops them out a little bit so you can see them better. All that hard work painting those berries. Once you get those berries done, or you've decided you're going to do them at home, this part of the piece is done. So you can set it aside. So we're going to work on these letters. Okay, now this is going to be, we're going to stipple or use a cosmetic sponge or whatever you like to use to like stipple with. We're going to stipple these letters first with deep midnight blue, and I would suggest working 2 letters at a time so that you can do this, because we're going to be blending wet on wet on these things. So I think you can see we're going to first do the whole thing in deep midnight blue, and then we're going to pick up some green lagoon. So you want to get out another little puddle of green lagoon. So you need deep midnight blue and green lagoon, and you're going to need warm white, which we have out, but you might want to put a little more out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stipple these or pounce these letters to base coat them with deep midnight blue. Okay, and I might need to move my deep midnight blue. It's kind of close to my brown. So I'm just going to base coat these letters in with deep midnight blue. I just know I'm going to pick up that brown, so I got out some more deep midnight blue. Okay, I'm going to work one letter. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up on that dirty sponge or stencil brush, I'm going to pick up some green lagoon, and I'm going to pounce that in the top half of the letter. So I've lightened up that top half a little bit. And then, I know that I'm going a little quick, but we have 4 letters, so you can watch me do it 4 times. I'm going to pick up a little warm white on that dirty sponge or stencil brush and just pounce the very top edge of that letter. And it doesn't matter that I have all those lighter colors on my sponge. When I go to do the next letter, I'm just going to wipe it out a little bit, and I'm going to go back to my deep midnight blue. So you can get away with doing a couple letters at a time, but I wouldn't do all of them at this at the same time, you know, because it would dry too much. So I'm going to pounce my end with deep midnight blue and base it in. And try to find a place to hold it. I'm going to do my O too. So now I'm going to go to my first lighter color, which is Green Lagoon. And I'm going to pounce that in the top half of the letter. Oh, I was going to go do the W, but I haven't painted it yet, so. And then I'm going to pick up some warm white and do the brightest. So you can, after these dry a little bit, you can look at them and see, oh, maybe I want some more warm white up here. So maybe I put in a little bit more warm white at the top. It's completely your taste. But if you don't do it like I did it, no, I'm just teasing. All right, last letter. You should have the hang of it by now. All right, I'm almost done. So if you have a chalk pencil, this will make it easy. Just put a dot in the center, like in the center of the S, the center of the two sides of the N and the O and the W. That just gives you an idea of where you're going to put your berries and your little leaves. That is, if your thing is dry enough for your chalk pencil to write on. My S is, but the other ones aren't. It doesn't have to be perfect because luckily these letters don't line up next to each other, so they don't have to line up straight across. You're welcome for that. So I'm just going to line a little stem with burnt umber on either side of that dot that we put for the center, and it's about half or 3/4 of an inch long, and it's just plain old burnt umber. So we should have little vines. So we're going to do just little set down leaves on that vine. You need sweet mint, which is probably dry on your palette. And you just need your liner brush. You're going to kind of load the brush a little bit. Nope, no water, okay? And then you're going to go back into the puddle of paint and load that tip of the brush a lot. Pick up quite a bit of paint, okay? And then you do just what it says. You set it down, and this is going to be the worst looking one ever, probably. But you just set it down, so you get a little oval, and then you
do you reload that tip each time?
No, not really. And I made my little stems a little longer, so on the original piece it only has 5 leaves. This one's going to have 7 because I made mine a little longer. So you just go, that's all it is. It's just a little, they don't have to line up. But you can take your time, make this a little part-time career. But they're just little ovals that you just set down. We're not going to shade them. We're not going to highlight them. Load your brush up a little bit and then go back in and pick up a bit of paint on the tip. So I'm just going to do the top sides on all of them first. That way I won't get my fingers in them too much. So there are some little berries in the middle of each of these little sprigs of leaves, and those are just joyful pink. There's 3 of them in each little space, and you can just dot. You can go ahead and dot those with a stylus. I wouldn't use the back end of my brush because that gets a little heavy on paint, or you can just set them down with your liner brush. But you just want to put 3 little berries in the center. And they're going to go right over your best looking leaves. They don't have to be the same size. Thank goodness. But each of them does get a highlight dot, so think about that when you're dotting them on there. Wow, you're going to have a completed piece. Awesome. So just 2 more little things to do. And one of them being the highlight dots on the berries, which you need to let them dry. But you want to get out your best 2-haired liner. No. There are little detail lines. They could be strokes if you want them to be in the letters that start at the tip of the little green leaf there and go around, and then they split wherever those little stirrups are, and that's with warm white. And you can thin that down a little bit. Just try to keep your fingers out of your dots. Tall request, I know. There you go. Thanks for letting me paint with y'all. I appreciate it.